Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Berkshire Environmental Action Team. We will be the beneficiaries of all of the artwork that you're going to buy, hopefully. But I just wanted to say thank you all for coming. This is a group show and also a wee little fundraiser for our work. You can find out more about what we do. We've got tons and tons of paper, being a good environmental organization, over there that I invite you to peruse. We're based over in Pittsfield on the west side. We have a whole slew of really fun things coming up that I encourage you to join us for. Coming up on Saturday, we'll be at the Pittsfield Farmers Market for Farmers Market and Pride. And we'll have a tree with our foresters from the Free Tree Program. We help administer and run the Free Tree Planting Program in Pittsfield. It's a state program. It's really wonderful. I encourage you to find out more over there. On Tuesday, we've got Pittsfield Green Drinks at J. Allen's on North Street. And we're going to be talking about Plastic-Free July. There's information over there. On Thursday, we'll be at Third Thursday. There's no information over there, but it's basically just come and walk around in Pittsfield and get some food and talk to some interesting folks. And then Saturday, the 22nd, we will be at Wacona Park at 9 a.m. and we will disperse from Wacona Park to gather trash out of the Housatonic River. It's lots of fun. And if you stick with it until 12:15, you get pizza and goodie bags from Blue Q.
What's in the goodie bag?
Awesome Blue Q fish. So I encourage you. We've got a ton of other stuff going on. Oh, Tuesday morning at 8:30, we're going to be walking around the Pittsfield Common talking about trees and birds and birding by ear and talking about tree ID, natural history of the Berkshires, and lots of other fun things. So that's like a lot of information. Just go to our website when you forget all of everything that I just told you. I would like to introduce Steve Sears. He's the owner of this, one of the owners of this amazing building, and we're so honored and grateful to be here. So take it away, Steve.
One of the other owners is my dear wife, Maria, who's sitting over here. Before I want to tell you a little bit about the building, but I won't take too long so we don't.
Take all the time you like.
We have my dear friend Sandy here, who it was her brainchild to do this, and her husband John, who's here as well, and one of the artists. They're both artists, and so I want to thank them. Before this building came up, I was very fortunate to work for the company who owned this building, and I actually worked here as a janitor back in the 70s. So I worked here before that big addition was put on. And I lived in the neighborhood. I still live in Dalton, and my parents still live in the neighborhood. So we had an open house to invite the neighbors over and tell them what we thought we were going to do. We were going to put a natural foods market in here. Well, that didn't work out. But the people said, we're not really too worried about what you're going to do because we know where your parents live. Even though I'm 60 years old. But anyways, I had the great fortune to meet Jane a long time ago when I worked for Crane and was involved with writing the conservation restriction for the boulders and also the conservation restriction for the old mill trail is what's called as the Jericho Woods conservation restriction. Those were some of the, even though I worked for Crane for 25 years and was involved with many things, those are the things that I think were my most important achievements. I caught my first trout at 3 years old, 2 of them, in the little brook that goes through the boulders with my dad. And so to actually have that protected was really important to me. And so what BEAT does, and what is again hugely important. Fast forward to a few years ago, one of my mentors was a guy named Jidge Derry, and Jidge was on the Fish and Wildlife Board for 35 years, or 38 years, and he was the chairman for 38. Jidge passed away on December 21st. We laid his ashes to rest last Wednesday, not yesterday, the week before, in Church on the Hill, and that was his 91st birthday. But I got to take his place on the Mass Wildlife Board of Directors. So for me, protecting the outdoors, all this, everything that BEAT does, is just, it is part of who I am. And so anyways, that's the real story. But what we're doing here in this building, just really quickly, I knew a lot about this. I worked for Crane for 25 years. I got fired 12 years ago. About 7 years ago, Crane said they're moving to North Adams. I read it in the Eagle, and I said to Maria, I want to buy the building. She said, why? She should have shot me right then. No.
Just stopped you.
Anyways, I very secretly communicated with Crane. We bought the building, and it was just like a dog catching a bus. We had no idea what we were going to do. But we knew we wanted to not go to Northampton to go out to eat and go for entertainment and stuff. And so we did what we did. And we wrote all- And we have the baseball in the Berkshires just moved in. Yesterday they started. They moved out of the mall. So they are our 19th business that's located in the building.
Wow.
So we have, as of the end of December, we brought 69 jobs to Dalton in 5 years.
Wow. Woo.
And my projection is in a couple years we'll be over 100 jobs in the building. So I think that's a pretty good thing economically for Dalton. So, and if you haven't been to a show here, I highly encourage you to come to a concert. We have a lot of musicians ever since Dom got out of the business back there at Buckspeed and Woody's caved in and Music Inn is gone. There isn't a place that you can dance and see good shows, and we've put an immense amount of effort into developing what we hope is the top acoustical delivery system for any performers in the area. So it's really important to us, and we're really trying to bring that stuff to the Berkshires. And so anyways, that's enough about who we are. Super excited to have a talk, and I'll hand it back over to my friend Elizabeth.
Can I ask a question though? Do you upstairs, are there studios? Is that what I heard? That-
I'll briefly go through what's here.
Yeah.
So in the basement, if you haven't been there, there's a nano brewery. It's two young men in their 20s who gave up what they were doing, invested a huge amount of money. They're brewing beer. They just had their first delivery outside of the county, and it's in Boston. That's a big deal. There's a micro distillery. Another guy about my age who worked in the paper industry. Blah, blah, blah. So anyways, he's like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. He started a distillery. We have a coffee business upstairs that sells coffee to coffee shops and equipment, stuff like that. They don't have a coffee cafe there. We have a number of artists, a woman from Dalton, so there's studios upstairs, and we have Elizabeth Kick, who is just starting the Dalton School of Art and Creativity. There's no art school in Central Berkshire County, and people were going to IS 183. She had a dream. She's building it. It's happening. We also have a father and son team building custom furniture. We have massage therapy. We have Dave Williams. I think Dave is gone, but he was here. He sells very high-end graphic paper for high-end art, and in the fall we are planning on having a show called the Atlas of Humanity, where it's been in New York City. It will be in Chicago. It's an international show, and then it's coming here because Dave's company is the one who actually sponsored it. And they took these photographers and they went all around the world and tried to get a picture of every group of people, subgroups of people, and an Italian guy is curating this, so it's like a National Geographic show. So you'll see that coming. The next show that's coming here is a Berkshire Photography Show. That's opening in July, I think. And then upstairs above that, we have a recording studio. Right now, we have a show there next week. We're looking to do recording up there, do house shows where we can actually press vinyl and ship it to people within 1 week of the show, which is not done anywhere. and possibly use Excelsior to make the album covers. So we're going to try to syndicate those shows, and then when they're done with their recording, put those people on the main stage so that they can have a concert and develop their marketing material, do their videos before they hit the road. And then downstairs, along with the brewery, there's I'll call them an electronics upcycler. They buy computers and electronic gear from all over the country that comes off of lease. They verify the quality of all that, and they ship it all over the world. So all of our computers are they're all secondhand in the building, but it's great. They're a great resource. That's what goes on.
Thank you.
Long answer.
No, that's great. I love it.
So anyway.
Bravo.
Take up that much.
No, thank you. This is such an amazing resource.
Yeah.
So we would not be here tonight if Sandy, Leonard Hausman, and John Hausman had not thought, do you guys want us to put on a little art show for you and raise some money for you? And we said, yeah, that sounds really great. And then we thought, well, we sat down with Steve, and Steve said, well, you should really have somebody come talk. And I was thinking, well, who is like sparkly and amazing and would be really fitting in an art show? And Meredith Babcock is like the only person who entirely fulfills that brief. Meredith is Sandy and John have put a huge amount of effort into this show, and I want to thank them, and I want to give them a hand
Yeah.
right now. So, and their art is on the walls, buy it. Meredith Babcock is with the Wild and Scenic Westfield River. The Wild and Scenic Act is in its 51st year. It is an amazing piece of legislation that is federal that protects rivers. Know about it. We put on a little film festival in the spring. We did it the second time this year. Come next year. It's an amazing way to experience the environment through a filmmaker's lens. So I would like to hand it over to Meredith Babcock to tell us the work that they've been doing in the Westfield watershed. Welcome, Meredith.
Thank you. I'll walk in front of my. I'm not sure quite how to do the little schlucka here. I need a training.
Ready? So it is on. The center is for the cats.
Okay.
Backwards, forwards.
Great.
And you just point it vaguely in the direction of my computer. That's where the
Okay,
little
so to get back to the beginning,
There you go.
So this is
right
forward.
is forward, yeah.
Great. I live in Beckett. My name's Meredith Babcock. I came to this part of the world not as someone that worked in the Wild and Scenic. I came as a puppeteer to this part of the world, and I had grown up in Alaska. My father was a mountain guide and a university teacher, and I spent many, many, many days in the woods, on mountains, in tents, and was quite old before I realized that wasn't what everybody did. And then I started not doing it quite as much, but still snagging him whenever he went to South America or on very large expeditions. And he is here tonight, so if anyone has mountaineering questions, I'm going to point him out in the back there, Bill. So I was approached by Mike Young, who was the then president of the Westfield River Watershed Association, two different associations, the big umbrella being the Watershed Association and the designated stretches of the Westfield being under the Wild and Scenic title. He said, we would really love to include more families, more young people in our outreach. What do you think about creating a puppet show about the watershed and watershed dynamics? I was doing a show at the Berkshire Museum called Maggie's Garden, a large horse head and a small child and a lot of dancing and puppets of carrots. And I said, yes, I would love to have your grant and make a show for you about the watershed, trying not to show that I had no idea what watershed meant. So I ran home, looked up the word watershed, got really excited that shadow and shed had the same root, and thought, well, a lot of it has to be a shadow puppet show. Started to develop the show, toured it all around the Westfield, and I kept calling Carrie Banks and Liz Lacey with the National Park Service, Carrie Banks, who works with the Department of Ecological Restoration. Yes, you have a Department of Ecological Restoration in Massachusetts, which is pretty exciting. And they do amazing work. And I kept calling them, asking questions and doing research, and finally they said, would you like to be our volunteer coordinator? Because we need someone to do outreach and to create events and come up with ideas to pull people out so they see what they have. And as with BEAT and all the other incredible organizations in this area, if you love it, you're more likely to protect it. And as I look around the room, I am talking to the choir, I know. But you're going to hear the whole song and dance anyway. So this is in Washington, Mass. And each year I would train. When I first started, that's 11 years ago now. The Westfield was Massachusetts' first wild and scenic river, so 25 years. This is the 26th year, which is pretty incredible. And the way that the Westfield came about, being a wild and scenic river, is also unique. It's state administered, which means instead of a congressperson looking at a river that is in a national park or is already somewhat protected and saying this should have that extra layer, it came out of the communities that it now serves, and through the state was then proposed to Congress. But it means that the river is unique in that it's a board that is made up of individuals from the 10 towns that have wild and scenic designated stretches. So you really get to talk to the people in the town about how they feel about their river segment, how they want to go about protecting it, what the most important areas are. And so that's been really exciting. In the beginning, when I came on, I thought, well, we need to get out and walk it, right? That makes sense. I'll train people to go out and walk all these segments, of which there are 78 that are designated. Initially, the first designation, the first round was 43, 46. Carol? No. It was in the mid-40s, and then they expanded it to 78. So I started training people, and I trained people one year, and I got every single mile adopted, which sounds great on paper. There's the rub. With training and getting out, and you all know this too, it's a lot of work. You take on something, you're excited, you've got your little packet, you've been trained by Meredith out in the field, and you go out, and where do you park, and where do you pee, and did I bring a lunch? And I forgot that the river doesn't have a path along it. So that means I'm either in the river or by the river. And is this private land or public? I mean, there are all these things that come flooding, none of which I had taken into consideration the first few years. So it was learning for me. Year 3, we've gotten better. We're getting more packets back from the people that we've trained. But I start to notice that I'm training a lot of people that don't live here. People are driving from far away to come because they're excited about the river, which is wonderful. But I start to realize I really want, in the work that I do, to start to make contact with the people that are living on the river or that are neighbors to new people that are moving onto the wild and scenic river, so that they can convey some of the incredible things that are true about it, so that they can choose to spend their Thursday night or Wednesday night going to the town select board meeting and actually voicing why it's important to do X or Y, or to buy this property and take down the house that has a septic that hasn't ever worked, and why they should not put a trail there, because a trail there would make people walk right along the river's edge and would mean that it would start to erode. People that understand at a little deeper level. So I started to shift the way that I did the trainings. I still was going to walk all 78 miles or have it walked with a whole process. We called it a visual survey, so not quantitative data, but information that would then guide where we would have someone go and do that deeper level of research. And I was very excited that the committee said yes to my insane proposal, which was I would like to start walking the watershed, because I'm a little nervous about continuing to adopt out this segment up in Windsor that I keep getting back with, I'm so sorry I didn't complete this, and little notes of, I tried, but I didn't know. So I thought, okay, I'm sending people out to places I've never been. So why don't I go out there? And we came up with this plan. We said 6 years, we'll start walking, and we'll invite the community. So we started up on the East Branch, the Upper East Branch. Letters went out to all the landowners. Would you like to walk with Meredith on the river? People got on lists. I sent out emails, and I had an intern, and we started walking. We do about 1 or 2 miles once a week. People joined us for parts of it. Some people joined us as we were walking. Oh, are you the ones that are walking the watershed? Wait, let me get my boots. And they'd run and grab them. It was really, really exciting and fun. Last year, which was our 25th anniversary, coincided with completing all 78 miles. So all the designated miles have been walked with interns and community members and landowners and anyone else that I could drag along with me. So this is just a little slideshow that I put together. And it's a particular year, but I selected it because it kind of shows the kinds of things that the committee does and the work that they do. And these are the committee members going out. We thought sometimes only one committee member will be really involved with a certain project because it will be in their town or they'll be particularly passionate about it. So this year we decided, let's take the whole committee out and show them some of the successes, some of the places. This is up in Middlefield. One of our walkers, before we started walking all the segments, one of our volunteers, we got the packet back and they said, you know, people are coming to this incredible waterfall up in Middlefield that's owned by the trustees of reservations, Glendale Falls, and they're trampling the vegetation, not out of a desire to, but that there's no clear trail. People don't know where they're supposed to go. So that's a wonderful opportunity for us because Glendale Falls is on a designated wild and scenic stretch of the middle branch of the Westfield River. We applied for a Mass Trails grant with the trustees of reservations. We hired Aaron Amadon and Peter Jensen to come up and lay out a trail. And then I was able to weave into that trail grant the idea that I'd like 2 days to teach our trail builders or our volunteers how to do some of the things so that I'd have them on further projects. We also reached out to West Springfield and Springfield to the incarcerated. There's a group of amazing men and women who volunteer to come out and work on projects. So often they're people that are in really good standing or they're really close to their release date. And that was incredibly moving for me to have these groups come out and work with us and carry the gravel and place the stones. Really beautiful, large man came over. I was all by myself. I've got my little food there. Everybody else has gone down the trail. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm not sure this is a good idea. And he's walking over to me, and he has this really stern look on his face, and he gets pretty close to me, and I'm trying to think about how I would, deal with this and how the table and what. And he says, "Did you make those muffins?" And I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "I like those muffins." I said, "Do you think you could get me the recipe? We cook." And I fell apart. I thought all of my own assumptions and all of my pathetic little concepts of just puddled. And I certainly got him the muffin recipe. This over here is also at the top of the Glendale Falls. The trail, I hope you'll take a trip or that you have already gone up to see it. There is a handicap accessible part of the trail that brings you right out to the top of the falls. We're still hoping to work with a young group to make some kind of a bench so that someone can sit there for a while the others trundle down the trail. Working with Peter Jensen and Aaron Amadon, if you ever get a chance, if you see volunteers needed, go. Cancel everything else, go on out. Walking with him while he was laying out the trail was fascinating because he would walk and he'd be walking right towards a stone. And I was thinking, well, don't we want to go over there? But I, don't say anything. And it was to make people stop. And I thought, I've never thought of that. Laying out a trail that you not only want to get people from A to B, but you want them to find places where they're confused a little bit or surprised, and they stop and take a breath and look around. And it changed the way, both the way that I walk on trails and also the way that I try and lay out trails. But I also follow people on that trail. I'll bring friends and I'll pretend that, oh, I'm just tying my shoe. And I'll let them get ahead of me so that I can watch. And it happens over and over. They're walking along and then they're not sure I'm supposed to go between these two little rocks. They stop and they look around and they take it in. And they can see them breathe and their shoulders drop. And then they walk through the little rocks. I think, thank you. This is up on Kenny Brook. You might not know where that is. It's in Chester, Mass. If you know the Littleville Fairgrounds, Littleville Lake was Littleville before it was a lake. And one of the remnants of that lovely small village is Littleville Fairgrounds, and above that is Kenny Brook, a beautiful dirt road that goes up to Worthington. And there was a dam, one of, I don't know, do you know the number of dams? It's some like 100,000. The Department of Ecological Restorations will know that number, and they'll have them earmarked. Well, this is one that they had looked at and said, there's no purpose for this dam to be here. This is an old dam from long ago on a beautiful tributary that is just prime for fish habitat. Worked with a number of partners, and Westfield University came in and did some assessment before and after. Our committee helped with funding and with consultations, and that dam was removed and a new bridge placed at the same time. So the landowner was happy. The fish are very happy, and all the agencies can also, after many, many years, I don't want to make it seem like these things happen overnight. They happen over centuries. That's like the curve of, it's a long curve, but it's wonderful. So it's nice to be able to bring the committee out to see some of the things that their decisions have made. A river has many voices, from a roar to a delicate whisper. To all those who listen to the river and who serve on the committee, raising their voices for the river, I thank you. And that was me just feeling incredibly happy that I got to do this job. It's not a big job. It's 2 days a week. And now, as of last year, it's 3 days a week. Very exciting. And it allows me to still do my puppetry on the side. But the committee, they're all volunteer. They're community members that come to the meetings and drive from Lee up to Savoy to be able to attend. Thank you. One of the things that was exciting for me was learning through BEAT, getting to attend Sue Morris's lectures and starting to have another layer to what I was looking for along the riverbanks, and also finding that I could do this in the winter too. I had been doing a lot in the spring. The winter was quiet, but with tracking and the wildlife cameras that we acquired, it let me have that other layer of exploration. We have 6 cameras. We do lend them out to communities and families that live along the river, and it has to be the designated wild and scenic. We found this amazing bear sign, many, many years of being loved by bears, and fisher tracks that were quite clear in the ice and snow, and this is in Beckett. Many of you might have been out to the Keystone Arch Bridges. That's in Chester, Beckett, and in Middlefield. They have all 3 towns these bridges span. If you haven't been, definitely go or call me and I'll take you. We have people that volunteer to take photographs of the same spot. And it can be a spot that they love and they know they're going to be going to, so that they take it in a number of different times of year. And this is on a far side of the 72-foot arch. And you can see here there's some damage from the flood in the 20s that somehow stood during this flood, but the water, I'm told, was reaching almost to the top. And this little area is of concern, so we kind of monitor it and keep watching the number of stones. We're also looking at the water levels and how they change. I met a couple of guys heading up to the Beckett Quarry, another amazing place that most of you probably have hiked. They were carrying a canoe over their head and walking up to the quarry, and I had my stuff, and I thought, I'm sorry, I have to know you. I need to know who you are, and I need you to work for me. And they were heading up to paddle in the quarry, which is okay, climbing and paddling, as long as you check in with the Beckett Land Trust. Diving and jumping, we do not advise anyone do for their own health and safety and security. But they were going to paddle and climb on the rocks. And I said, hey, I've got a wall of vegetation that I'd love if I got a grant from the Wild and Scenic. Would you be interested in coming out and rappelling down and cutting the trees off? And they were extremely excited about this. One of them had done some removal before. They were used to rappelling with chainsaws. It was very, very exciting. So for 4 years, we worked on different parts of the bridges, and it's a slow and repeated task. This wall is a 50-foot wall that had not seen the light of day in very, very many years. These are from 1842. This bridge was finished. And you can see a little bit here. This is a little bit earlier, and then the vegetation that's been cut off. Huge trees and amazing, amazing men. And we had come out and had volunteers that would then drag the bits of brush away so it wouldn't be left in piles or sucked down the river, clogging other parts.
Meredith, have you had the pleasure working with David Pierce?
Yes, I have. And if you can get Dave out there, you will learn so much about these arch bridges. Or going to the museum in Chester, and he lives right across the street, so if you make enough noise or jump up and down, he probably will come out and give you a tour. I highly recommend, there's a little caboose there that you can rent for a sleepover. I had 12 little girls there for my daughter's 11th birthday, although I was informed that it was not a sleepover, it's a wakeover, because there are active trains. So I had failed to, in their little goodie bag, to give them all earplugs, so I would add that next time. This is another just image of someone taking from the same part on a bridge. This is in Worthington on the East Branch, the Upper East Branch. Taking the same image, part of what we're looking for here, as well as just the different water levels, we're looking at the buildup of cobble, we're looking at what's happening to the bank, and are there some things, and most of you are pretty savvy here in this group. I'm going to try and it becomes really clear when you can share this that if you remove all the vegetation, there are problems, that it's an invitation to the river, because the river will go or move soil and sediment where it's easy, and without those beautiful fingers of the branches, it's much more likely that you're going to lose some of the land there. So trying to just teach people about, yes, seeing the river is wonderful. Take your coffee down and sit on a rock along the river instead of trying to clear it all the way down. Little things like that can be enormous things for the health of the river. Not only the erosion aspect, but also the cool. When I take people out here, just having, and I do this more with the Beckett Washington Elementary School, we have a Stream Explorers program, and just having the children walk from the sunshine, I said, feel the heat, and just stand there, turn your face up, and they're like, oh, we're getting hot, we're getting hot. I'm like, okay, now walk forward. And they get into the trees, and they're like, ah, let's play here. And I say, well, you guys are just like fish. They like that too. This is a little close-up of just looking at some of the wall slowly coming in. We are still hoping that it will come to pass to be able to do some restoration here. There is an ongoing prayer I have to the CSX that, is there anyone that works at CSX House that I can woo? It would be lovely if they collaborated with us to help restore the arches, because that's the only access. You can see here in 2016, we had extremely low water levels. At that point, my dad and I were walking on this part of the river and found the first rock snot on the Westfield. And that, if any of you know, it's a really thick, very detrimental algae that is really drawn to cold water streams, which is unusual. And it can really change the dynamics of a river. There is some disagreement as to whether it's always been there and just shows up when the situation is right, or whether it's being brought in on the felt soles of fishermen's boots or the wet clothes or tools that people bring or use or gear. That we can prevent if people know to clean and dry or freeze their gear. That'll prevent that. We're really hoping that people shift away from the felt sole boots because it's so hard to dry them well enough. These plants are so well adapted to living that our best drying capability, they still hold on and then wake up again. So this is another image taken by a volunteer looking at the same crossing and just realizing how dynamic, how wide a space. And again, I mean, I use it a lot with the kids that I work with that, you know, how much room do you need? How much room? Can I stand right here? Can I stand right here next to you? Can I, how tight can I get? And they really, I said, how much do you need? What if you were going to dance? What if you wanted to, you know, and they'd say, oh, you have to go farther back. I'm like, okay, how far back? Okay, farther. Okay, that's good. And then I have them dance. And I say, that's what the river wants. You know, human beings love to hold it in and make it, you know, tight and even send it farther down. But all of those things are really contrary to the health and well-being of the river. And when they can see that, I think it's helpful. There's a happy river. This is an exchange student I had from Germany, and I took her out, and she was just amazed by, this is right between the two Keystone Arch bridges that are part of the trail system. And now I'm going to not destroy this incredible picture, but I am going to tell you that this little chunk was not the real run of the river. When the railroad abandoned the two arches that are part of the trail and dynamite was invented, they actually changed, and the river used to go behind and make this enormous circle and come straight towards the 60-foot bridge, but they wanted the railroad there. So they did change this, and this may have been before a little trib or a branch of the river. The nice thing is that over 100 years, the river does start to carve it again and call it its own, so long as we don't encroach on it anymore. This is a great swimming hole, by the way, right here. And I know you've seen a lot of the bridge, but that was a year I focused on the bridge. And I just needed to put this in because this is a huge ice circle that when I arrived there, it was just spinning at the center underneath the arch. So I put that in partly too because sometimes we only go to the river during the summer or spring, and I found that the winter was such an incredible time to see the changing. These are some of the amazing reps from Middlefield, some of who are here, yay.
And now in Beckett.
And now in Beckett, that's right. We're looking for a Beckett rep. The Travel the Watershed suitcases. These were part of an art project, which I thought was fun to bring one here. The committee wanted me to do a little more outreach with pamphlets and flyers. I looked all over the place for a foam thing that I liked, and I thought, we can do this. We can build something. I approached Hartwood School in Washington, Mass., an amazing woodworking post and beam, incredible. If you ever can take a class there, do. I couldn't, so I decided to get a grant so I could work with them. Michelle Beamer agreed to design with me these suitcases. It's called Travel the Watershed. We made them to fit the kinds of things that we wanted to show. They close up and can be carried off. They are available if anyone has a location where you're interested in sharing the work of the Westfield River Wild and Scenic. We had 18 artists apply to paint them. They were just raw wood. We paid for the paints and the supplies. I embedded in the grant that I would, of the 6 cases, 4 of them would be painted by local artists that lived in the towns that had wild and scenic designation. We ended up choosing 5 because there's so many artists here, and then 1 young woman from Boston. Toured them around, showing them places, asked them to show me the places that they loved, and based on those walks and their own explorations of the river, they returned these incredible suitcases to us, all painted, and I'm able to now share them. This is up in Worthington. We not only did we walk the 78 miles that are designated, we've also walked 39 miles of tributaries based on other tribs where people say, wait a minute, why isn't this one designated? And I say, well, nobody asked, let's go walk it. So we go out, we collect the data, and if we ever expand the designation again, which hopefully will happen when there's a willingness to expand the funding, expand the support of, so that you have more river miles to look after. It also means that the reason that it's significant to expand, if I'm a town and I want to put a culvert in and it's wild and scenic and it triggers a certain response, the Wild and Scenic and the National Park Service, they have to sign off on the construction on the bridge. So it doesn't slow the project down, it changes, it tweaks the project. So it says, have you considered the health and the well-being of the river? Have you included the bank full width or bank times, it's 1.2? And we can help them find ways of accessing other funding and find ways of just encouraging them to keep going and also help document. Sometimes their communities are really willing to put all that effort in, but it's nice for them to see the mink that trundled through. It's nice for them to see the image of the river reclaiming its own little pathway through. And that's some of the things that we can do and then bring back and say, look what you've done. Like with this building, look what you've done. It's great. We do Wild and Scenic Saturdays, which sometimes happen on Sundays, depending on when things are happening. Just bringing out specialists. This is Ed Newmuth up in Washington, and a wonderful day out looking at macroinvertebrates and listening for birds and looking at the ferns. There's such a rich source of knowledge in this area that it's really easy and wonderful to find specialists. Jane Wynn came out and did a fabulous vernal pool explore up in Beckett. We're pushing to not only get people out and excited about the vernal pool, but also certify the vernal pools that they find and continue to reach out to their communities. After 3 years of doing that one day and having people be really thrilled, all excited, and then only a couple pools getting designated, we thought, wait a minute. And I called people up and I said, okay, there's no guilt, but you haven't certified a pool. I just want a conversation. I want to know why. And they said, well, I just didn't feel sure that I knew what that little egg was, or which salamander was it? I don't know. So we decided we needed a longer training. This year we did 3 days. We trained 16 individuals to be the reps of those 16 towns. Just someone that's a resource person, someone to reach out to members of their community, showed them during a whole afternoon how to upload the data, and we've already had 10 pools proposed for certification. We have now they're reviewed. Luckily with this situation, it's not, you don't have to be absolutely sure. You can say some mole salamander, and then someone does look at it and put it through the pipe if it meets all the criteria, or emails you and says, we're not so sure, you have to go out next year and get a little a chorus of frogs. One of the things that I learned this year, because the great thing about inviting people is that I'm a puppeteer, or was. I guess 11 years ago I was only a puppeteer. And during all this incredible resource individuals that I get to go out with and offer to the community, I also get to learn a tremendous amount myself. So this year I learned that a wood frog tadpole belly is absolutely a gorgeous copper circle. So if you can flip over a tadpole without getting any sunscreen or bug spray, or that's the downside, no wearing that, you know that it's a beautiful wood frog. And I've had a lot of little tadpoles flipped over this year just to go, oh! So each year I get to learn something new. Beavers, if you haven't read the Eager Beaver, The Secret Life of Beavers and Why They Matter, get it. And I actually got the Beckett Library to buy the book, so you can check it out there. This is more of the Vernal Pool Explore. These were two of the ones that did get certified. Is that true, Carol? Is that right? Yes. And this little egg mass is a Jefferson Salamander. Yeah. Yeah, woohoo! I blew it up, it's on my wall, and people, it's like, getting families involved is something that I love, and I think it's being a puppeteer, but also just, they really are the ones that are gonna make the changes, that are gonna actually move things forward. And I don't encourage them to be nice and sweet and helpful. I encourage them to be demanding and honest and demanding. You can see the eggs under there. John Burns, again out in Beckett. This was a piece of land that a wonderful family was looking to change hands and be purchased as part of the October Mountain State Forest. So we were able to go out and offer them wildlife cameras, gather some data and information to help support that transfer.
I'd like to say John he's an awesome piano player and has played both with us down in the pub, and he's played on the main stage with Tony Irion. So he's a great guy.
I just went to see his house. He's just built a house in Cummington, and I walk in, and it's a small house, beautiful, and he has a grand piano. And like, how did you get the grand piano? And that's another story. You'll have to have John tell you about the piano someday.
Is his nickname Burnsy?
Yeah.
Burnsy,
Oh,
yep.
Burnsy.
He will be at every year at the end of our walks and the end of our weekends. We do something called the Watershed Blitz, and it's a gathering of 65 to 85 people. They all go out in small groups and walk a long section of one of the designated reaches. This year we'll be up on the East Branch again, and Burns is doing one of the walks, and it'll be a pretty rigorous one, but it should be wonderful. Interns. I normally have interns every summer to help me walk, and they know to actually take the data down and make sure it stays dry and gets home. We have some underwater cameras that we're using, and this is in 2019 completing the surveys. And it's a lot of fun. You get to measure culverts. This is the other thing that I encourage anyone that wants to get to another level of acquiring data and having it be really useful for towns. There's a whole training going on through the Department of Ecological Restoration. If you're interested in that, of learning that, you can sign up and just write culverts, and I'll make sure you get the information. There are a couple trainings coming up across the state. They're really trying to, and BEAT has done the majority of this work, assess the culverts and allow for towns to look on a database when they have money in their pocket and say, this is the culvert that would have the most benefit to wildlife, the most benefit to the cold water fisheries, so they can make decisions about which ones, instead of, I don't know how they used to decide which ones, who was asking more, or, you know.
Or whichever one the road washed out.
Whichever one the road washed out, right? We like to get a little ahead of that. But there's quite a bit of funding coming forward for these replacements, and so the towns that are ready to roll, the towns that have information and can prove that that particular spot has a great deal going for it, is easier to get replaced. Ed Newmuth, and there we are. Who? Who? Yes, yeah, that was their land, yeah. Their land, just up on Shaker Mill Brook. And Shaker Mill Brook is an incredible brook. It's one of the only stretches of the Wild and Scenic that hit all of the marks. So they're designated for recreation reasons, they're designated for historic reasons. The designation also has a number of different pieces to it that need to be met in order to achieve the designation, as well as being healthy. And Shaker Mill Brook is incredible. There is not a trail along it, and I do not intend on building a trail along it. There is a trail, however, that everyone hopefully will go to or has, called the East Branch Trail. Runs from the Chesterfield Gorge up in Chesterfield all the way down to the Knightville Dam Basin. 6.5 miles of incredible old road, beautiful trail, fabulous for hiking, biking. People ski it. The snowmobilers use it in the winter. And here we are. Every year we do quite a work day. And this year we got a beautiful grant for the 50th anniversary from the National Park Service to do some stone culverts or swales. I'm not sure exactly, fjords, what they should be called, for a small trickle that is taking out parts of the road. So we're in the process of working on that. If you do want to get more information, there's a sign up here, and you'll be told when we'll be out doing that. So you too can hold one of these. These I lost. I couldn't find them for one of the days, and I searched and searched and searched. My husband and I have a really high bed, and it's out on a porch. And I found them. They were under the bed, and my husband did inform me that I am not the princess and the pea. Again, looking at different times of year and how the river just sculpts these incredible pieces of art. I don't suggest biking it on ice, but I had to get this photo because people do. Yeah, this is actually on the East Branch Trail. Oh. Yeah, this is the East Branch Trail. That long trail that ends at the, and you can actually leave a vehicle on one end and do a bike through if you like. So that's the end. Yeah. End of slideshow. If anyone has any questions or comments, or if I got any dates or things wrong, I do not ever mind being corrected. Well, thank you guys for coming out to this amazing show.